Well, good afternoon, and welcome to another live broadcast with Paul Hinman. Today's big discussion is sovereignty or servitude, and that's the position I see ourselves in. And I can't believe how fast we're accelerating and seeing the way things are coming to pass. But this is our Alberta; it's our choice. Doing nothing is a choice. Our decisions, they'll actually decide our destiny. And the question is, are we here to fight for our freedoms? Are we here for our children, our grandchildren? Or are we going to sit back and have apathy set in and we'll see those freedoms, I guess I want to say, lost for generations? Because once freedom is lost, it usually takes 2 or 3 generations minimum before people are in a position to fight and to put up that fight necessarily to get them back. It's far easier to keep our freedoms than to get the freedoms back. And I just want to say, it's amazing to me how many times I hear people say, well, Paul's not for separatism. Paul's not for sovereignty. Paul's not for independence. Let me make it perfectly clear, 100% clear. The purpose of the Wildrose Independence Party, our principles, our goals, is to have a successful referendum by Albertans to choose sovereignty so that we can be free and prosperous, so that we can choose and take control of our destiny. And anytime any of you hear someone says, oh, Paul is not for sovereignty, they're categorically wrong. What I continue to say, and where they get upset, is, to me, in order for us to gain our sovereignty, I'm sorry, but there's some steps that we need to take. We're not just a spoiled 16-year-old down in the basement of the house who's coming screaming upstairs asking what's for supper. That's disgusting. Why did you make that? Where are the keys to the car? Where's the credit card? I'm going out to get what I want on my own and storm out the front door and slam it. That's what spoiled brats do. We're a mature, developed province with business people. We have a credible business in all aspects. We have an incredible education system. It's not what it should be, but it's there, and we can fix it if we get out of federal oversight. Our healthcare system, it exists. It's good, but it can be a lot better. But all of these things, we need to be in a sovereign position. And I've talked many times, what are the steps that we need to take in order to give Albertans the confidence that we can be a sovereign and free nation, a prosperous nation, that we can actually be the beacon of free enterprise to the world, far greater than what North America currently is. And again, we're under attack. The World Economic Forum does not like the idea of sovereign nations. They want to rule and control our lives from birth to death. And I just don't believe that that's what Albertans want. And for that reason, I've come back into politics. I'm running for the leadership of the Wildrose Independence Party, and I want to lead Albertans to a future of freedom, a sovereign nation where we'll govern ourselves according to our beliefs, that we won't have hypocrites looking at us and pointing to us and saying, oh, look at them, and scorning and mocking us in our business. Will they use our oil? Will they use our products? They eat our food? All of those things, that we're just being viciously attacked by Eastern hypocrites, world hypocrites, and acting like here we are, the beacon of prosperity and freedom in the world, and they're attacking like we're the ones that are destroying the world, when in fact they're the ones that are against humanity, against prosperity, against individual freedoms. And so we've got a fight on our hands, folks. And the fact of the matter is, if we don't stand up and fight, we will lose this. I have to say, it was exciting to be in Edmonton 2 weeks ago on Monday. And it was just a week ago. Time flies. But it was exciting to see the thousands of people coming out. The weather was better. It was great. But people are waking up. I didn't make it to Princess Island Park, but I understand that there was 2,000-3,000 people there, which is exciting and what's necessary. I've been to a few different restaurants that are fighting the shutdowns, but the province is doubling down on them, and they're taking away they're going to take away their liquor license. And boy, once they've lost that, many of them, they're finished. And we've got to start standing up and speaking out for those businesses and for those people that want their freedoms. And we can't afford to allow those few that are mocking us and saying that, oh, what are you doing? You're destroying our country. You shouldn't be doing this. It's just wrong. There we are. Just exciting to be up there with Bernier, with Hodkinson and Modry and myself at the Edmonton rally. It went over really well. And that's what we need. We need people to be coming out, supporting these rallies and letting the government know that these lockdowns are wrong. This idea that we have to give up our freedoms for our safety is ridiculous. It's never worked in history, and it won't work going forward. But we need to do something about it. Yeah, there was a good crowd there, was smiling. But anyways, it's just exciting to be there. But I want to go over and read. And David, if you want to put up our founding principles and of the Wildrose Independence Party. But Alberta will be strong and free, fortis et liber, and sovereign. Alberta will gather unto itself all the power to uphold independence. Alberta will create the Constitution of Alberta, and Alberta will hold a referendum on independence. That's our founding principles. That's the purpose of the Wildrose Independence Party, and it's my purpose. We worked hard to come up with these principles that the wordsmithing is critical. And I can't say enough about fortis et liber, strong and free. There is nobody that is strong in a socialist government, except for those at the top, I guess. Those are holding that. But we will uphold all the power, or we'll gather unto ourselves all the power to uphold our independence. And again, I talk about the 6 major things that I always refer to. And I now go number 1 is to collect all of the taxes here in Alberta by Albertans for Albertans. Number 2, to create an Alberta provincial police force that has elected civilian oversight. We need to have our own Alberta pension plan. We need to have our own employment insurance policy, not subsidizing the rest of there. We need to have our own immigration policy, and to have that being served or serving the needs of the families and the businesses here in Alberta. And then the critical one at the end is that we don't need Ottawa's environmental policies. We'll create, and we have our own, and we'll look after our environment. Those are 6 things that are probably at the top of my list of the steps that we need to do to give Albertans the confidence to vote in a referendum that we can be a sovereign nation. There's those that are having little hissy fits and saying, we got to have a referendum, we need it this fall. Well, I'm sorry, folks, but the fact of the matter is we don't want a referendum. We want a successful referendum. And in order to do that, there's steps that we need to take in order to give Albertans that confidence so that we get a huge percentage, 70, 80% of Albertans realizing that, you know what, Ottawa is not looking out for our best interest. How many of you watched the federal budget or did anything on that? And wasn't that nauseating? I mean, what was there? 700 pages, $700 billion. $1 billion a page. It's just unbelievable what they're doing. But more important is to realize who is strong and free when you have a debt over your head like Alberta does and what Canada does. I mean, we're looking at $1.2 trillion. David, I forgot to ask you, but do you have a picture of that article by Jack Mintz that we could throw up? And from 1.2, add it all up, and Canada's debt burden is $3.2 trillion. 3.2 trillion, and that again was May a year ago. So that's probably up another 300 billion. It's probably 3.5 trillion. But Alberta freedom fighters, Alberta patriots, we're in trouble. Our current partners, our eastern partners, they're not carrying the load. They're actually saying that we need to carry the load. Again, I'll use a bit of a pun here, but what's the straw that breaks the camel's back? Well, it isn't going from plastic to paper straws like Ottawa wants to enforce on us. It's actually the billions, the trillions of dollars of debt. But the 2019 budget, which was the last one that they released, 2 years ago, it was a $19 billion deficit. But this one has ballooned 1,750% to $352 billion deficit. I remember, I used to think, I don't know, it's probably been 20 years now, that I used to think, man, if we could get our debt down to 350 billion, we got up to that 650 billion. I thought, wow, this has to change. But when you think about how crazy that is, Alberta has been sending $20 billion a year for the last, I think, 20 years down to Ottawa, $400 billion, $600 billion. They've done that in just 1 year. If you think 18 years at 20 billion, 360 billion, 18 years we've been doing that. Well, that's what last year's deficit was, 18 years of our taxes going there. This is just absolutely a disaster in the making. Ottawa is going to collapse, and do we want to be part of this bankruptcy? Absolutely not. We need to pull out of here. Canada is going to hit the debt wall, and we're either going to have massive inflation or we're going to see a dollar collapse, but industry is going to get hurt. And the only thing that Albertans can do to avoid this is to vote for sovereignty. We need to take those proper steps. We need to take control, have the autonomy in the areas that we can't have, and we'll take it where they say that we can't have, and then we'll have a battle to see where it ends up. And, it kind of kicks back on a few of my personal battles. I've commented and grateful for those farmers who actually went to jail to get rid of the Canadian Wheat Board. But as a farmer, I quit renewing my wheat board or my quota book in the 80s. I had enough of Ottawa and the way they told me I had to farm and when and how I could sell my products. And I got rid of that. I remember, I think it was in the 90s, they put out the beef tripart stabilization program, which I just fought back tooth and nail. And I was raising purebred cattle, and they're saying, oh, no, that you've got to register them. And I refused. And it says, no, I'm not going to register those. Those are not cattle that are going to market. These are breeding cattle. And anyways, I fought back and forth. And finally, I got this wonderful letter from them. Guess what they said? They're kicking me out of the stabilization program. And I see that for Alberta. We need to stand up and fight. We'll collect our taxes, and they can be mad. And absolutely, if they want to kick us out before we can vote to leave, thank you very much. That's like I say, I'd be happy to have that. But the fact of the matter is that we need to stand up, and we just can't say that, oh, there's nothing that we can do. Well, that's what servants say. There's nothing that we can do, and that just isn't good enough. I'd like to read you just one paragraph out of the 700 pages. And in order to do this, I better find some spectacular spectacles here so I don't mess up too bad. But Budget 2021 proposes to provide $172 million over 5 years, starting in 2021-2022, with $36.3 million ongoing to Statistics Canada to implement a disaggregated data action plan that will fill data and knowledge gaps. This funding will support more representative data collection, enhance statistics of diverse populations, and support the government's and society's effort to address the systemic racism, the gender gaps, including the power gaps between men and women, and bring fairness and inclusion considerations into decision makings. Wow. $172 million to fill the data gaps. Are you kidding me? Is Ottawa even to be involved in any of this? Are these not provincial jurisdiction? I don't know, but like I say, you just multiply that over the 700 pages. It's just nauseating to read and to think that, boy, you talk about big government, you talk about big taxes, you talk about in-your-face control, bureaucracy, paperwork. It's never ending. And how can we say that, oh, we want to be part of that? We just absolutely can't. We got to stand up for ourselves and say enough is enough. The status quo needs to go, and we're going to start taking the steps to exercise our full autonomy here in Alberta. Um, we're in a bad mess. And again, we look at COVID and what the governments are doing. I mean, you talk about the Eastern blocs, and if you read any of the history and the people trying to travel from one country to another or one province to another, they got to get permission. So what do we have? We've got BC setting up roadblocks. They're going to prevent the citizens leaving from one health area to another zone. You know what? We've actually kind of got rid of that because we just have one big provincial health area. I guess we kind of have the Calgary zone, the Lethbridge zone, but anyways, bottom line is that maybe that's one silver lining in today's centralized government, that they won't do that here in Alberta and say we can't leave. But it's unbelievable, you know. In Quebec, the police enforce curfews, and they're stopping people and asking them, "What are you doing out?" And you have to have proof of why you're doing it. In Ontario, they don't need curfews. Why? Because there's a complete lockdown. And again, it's great to see that the police are finally going to actually serve the people they're supposed to, and they're starting to refuse to I guess, strip away the freedoms from many Ontarians, which need to do. But in fact, right across Canada, including here in Alberta, our guaranteed freedoms are being stripped away. Clearly, the Constitution of Canada is no better than the paper that we can crumple up before us and throw into the fire and burn. And again, we see case after case. You know, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom, they desperately need Dr. Hinshaw to come before them in court on May 3rd. Nope, the judge says she doesn't have to do that. Has the judge not read in there demonstrably justified in our Constitution? Obviously, if he has, he's forgotten it because they justify it out of their personal fear. And again, the interference that we've continued to have on just a daily basis with government intrusion on our freedoms. But again, the only solution, both our economic and liberty for Alberta, is to actually say enough is enough. We need to be pushing forward to do these things with people realizing that the end goal, the final step, will be a referendum. But I just can't emphasize enough, the Wildrose Independence Party is just not another political party. This, again, is a rise up of freedom fighters, Alberta patriots that say, you know what, we don't want to be part of this old party system. We don't want to be part of this centralized government, top-down decision making. It's just unbelievable to me, the decisions that Jason and company are making. I'm going to say it again. I just think it was pathetic that we had some MLAs that wrote a letter and says, "Oh, we don't stand with the government on this decisions of lockdowns," and they thought they were being bold. All they were doing was playing both sides of the fence and saying that, you know, to their constituents, "Oh, we don't go along with this." I'm tired of them saying that, "Oh, I think I can do more good on the inside than I could as an independent sitting over there." Sorry, MLAs, I categorically disagree with you. Um, you know, Jason Kenney for years was what I thought of polished politician. He spoke wonderful words. You know, he talked about our Constitution. He talked about our freedoms. He talked about conservative values. But boy, once he got in, boy, he shed off that conservative coat, and the socialism, the world government, you know, all of that, it just comes shining through. And I'm sorry, but for me, if you're sitting in that caucus, boy, you're speaking out and doing good inside. I don't see it. What do you think would be the difference, whether you were sitting in there speaking out or being silent? And I'll argue, I think a lot of you are silent. All you do is talk to each other and say, "Oh, I don't think we should do this. Oh, I don't either." And then you says, "Well, we talked about it." No, speaking out is more than writing a letter. We need you to actually walk across the floor, sit as independents, and tell Premier Kenney that that's where you're going to sit until he reverses these provincial wide lockdowns. But more important is that you're going to sit there until he actually brings forward a recall legislation that will hold MLAs accountable to Albertans, and not to the Premier. We need a recall, and I've said it many times. I'll say it again tonight. It's a simple formula for me. If 20,000 people voted in the last election, you need 10,001 signatures to fire, not to cause trigger an election, or what would I say, a vote to see whether or not you're going to have a by-election. You just flat out fire them. You need to have like 120 days to do that. And that's what we need. And again, I can't believe how many times I've heard that, oh, we can't do tough things if we had recall. Are you kidding me? Like, what tough things do you do? The only tough things you do is strip away our freedom. And again, yeah, this is where you have recall. But again, so many times, the number one question that I get, and it's a valid one because we see it in politics all the time, what about splitting the votes? Well, Premier Kenny and you so-called UCP MLAs, if you're at all concerned about splitting the vote, number one, do the right thing. You've left us. We didn't leave you. And number two, pass recall legislation. Because if in fact the vote is split, and let's say that the NDP was to get in with 37%, all we need to do then is when they bring in something is actually recall them. And that is actually the absolute best thing to stop the worry about vote splitting, is to actually hold every MLA, doesn't matter what party they're from, is accountable through recall. And if the people are upset, there's no reason to go through 4 years of tyranny with nothing that we can do except for protest and write letters and make phone calls. No, we want to go out and collect signatures and fire you, get you out of there. You're not serving us, you're hurting us, and that can't go on. And so the Wildrose is about accountability. I mean, I guess, David, let's put up our purpose. And if you want to put up that slide for me here. What is the purpose of the Wildrose? It's sovereignty. Number one, we believe in the freedom, the dignity, and the worth of every individual. That government is of the people, by the people, and for the people, not over the people. We believe that Albertans find themselves daily confronted by a federal government far removed with destructive predatory policies designed to exploit and obstruct for its own ends at our expense. That no federal government has protected Alberta's interest or secured its future prosperity, not since 1905. We believe that the induced recession, which has devastated Alberta for the past several years, if not stopped, will continue Alberta's subservience to Ottawa. And finally, we believe that Albertans must exercise their self-determination to explore and pursue a new path forward, free of injustices, to protect and secure Alberta's prosperity. These are critical things that just we need to do that, and this is what we believe. Sorry, I'm ranting here and going so fast. I had to water down the system. But so, anyways, you know, what is it that we want? Do we want sovereignty, or do we want to continue this servitude to Ottawa, where they make the decisions, where they take our money, where they redistribute our money, billions of dollars, and leave us wanting to shelter ourselves, to feed ourselves, to be able to heat our homes? I mean, this personal attack, I just can't believe how far and how fast it's gone, and how little we've done. But both UCP and the NDP are Ottawa first government. They look to Ottawa because they want that heavy hand of government to control our lives, to control our industry, to control our future, and we can't have that anymore. I don't know how long it's been now since I've been on an airplane, and I don't know how long it's going to be till I'll be on an airplane. But I'm always amused at I shouldn't say amused. It's they go through their safety protocol when you get on an airplane every time. And maybe for a first-time rider, flyer, that's important. But the most important thing in all of that, if you're actually in trouble, is what? It's to pull on and to put on your own oxygen mask. You got to cover your face, and you have to look after that, because if you run out of oxygen, you're toast. Well, I love scuba diving. It's been a while since I've been scuba diving, and I have to say I'm a risk taker. I've done things that aren't always the most risk adverse. I've gone out in rough seas. I've done plenty of things, from night diving and going into caves with not always the proper equipment. But boy, I'll tell you, the one rule that I always follow is that when you're down to 500 pounds of oxygen, your dive is over and you're heading back to the surface or to the shore to get there. One of the things that they teach you when you learn to scuba dive is how to defend yourself, because if someone runs out of oxygen and you don't see them coming, they're in a desperate situation. I think that that's what we're looking at in the world, and certainly in Canada with the money that we're spending. Our economy is running out of oxygen. And when it runs out and you haven't got a plan or you're not back to safety, it's too late. And I'm personally very concerned on where we're going to be in 2 years from now, at the accelerated pace of spending, at the accelerated stripping away of our freedoms, of the majority might is right attitude, is alarming to me. And right now, I look at it, it's kind of like looking at your tank and you weren't watching, and you're down to 100 pounds and you're 100 feet down and you need to take a 10-minute decompression stop. You're in trouble, and you're hoping that there's someone else around there that's going to give you a tank of air so that you can decompress and not come up and get the bends. We're in a situation of getting the economic bends, and if we don't start taking control, I firmly believe that it's going to have a lot more complicated problems than anybody is really looking and forecasting and thinking that, oh, all is well. I look at all of these countries and the quantitative easing and the trillions of dollars that are being spent. This is the equivalent to 15 or 20 drunks walking down the street, and the only reason why they're able to stay up is because there's strength in the numbers of the 20 of them. But once the first person falls, the whole system's going down. We need to get out. We need to be out of debt. We need a government that is actually there to protect the people's individuals' lives, the individual's property, the individual's freedoms. And we do not have that. We don't have a constitution. It's just so critical that we get a constitution that, number one, recognizes the supremacy of God and the rule of law. And the purpose of that rule of law is to protect that individual, the individual's life, the individual's freedom, the individual's property. And as I read last week out of Bastet, we have that individual right to use force to protect those things. And we need that in a constitution. We desperately need a constitution that limits the size and scope of government. I've referred to this before again, but I'm going to say it again tonight. We need to have a tax freedom day of March 1st. And what that means is that the accumulated tax of all levels of government can't exceed 25%. The only way to stop the growth of government is to stop the growth of taxation. It's just unbelievable. Where is it going to stop? We're back. I remember in the 90s when the reform was the official opposition. I think it was 30 cents on every dollar was being spent on servicing the debt. We don't have enough money to carry on day-to-day operations. 2 years ago, it was $18 billion federally. Provincially, we're having major deficits. I think it's $25 billion here in the province. There is just no way that we can take on debt and that risk of interest going up. And I realize that there's many Albertans a lot younger than me, and they didn't go through that interest rate spike in the 80s where we got up to 17%. A lot of loans were 20%. These are credit card rates that we had back then, and it was devastating to the economy. And people who think that we can just continue to have quantitative easing and print money and not have a consequence, I'm sorry, they're going to be driving off the road and the bridge is going to be out, and they won't even know it until they're flying in the air. We need a government that is going to stop this and protect Albertans, and we can and we should do that. But anyways, the question is are we going to pick sovereignty, or are we going to carry on with the servitude? Are we going to work our guts out and send our money to Ottawa and then say, hey, can we have a little bit back? Hey, are we allowed to use natural gas to heat our homes or heat our water, maybe even cook with, or to use for transportation? Or are we going to have to buy it from some foreign entity, some place where they don't respect human rights, where they don't care about the environment? It's gobsmacking to me to think that the Easterners refused, Energy East. Energy security, I mean, that should be way up on everybody's priority around the world, but especially here in Canada, and we don't have that. These people are not our friends. We actually need to go through a family intervention here in Alberta and talk to our family members and give them a shake and say, look, this is getting serious. We can't just carry on. We have such, with low taxes, with low I want to say rules and regulations, with a smaller size of government, all of those things will create huge, massive economic opportunity for Albertans. We have so much here. When you consider the resources of the people and the education that we have here in Alberta, it's phenomenal. How many universities do we have now? How many hospitals do we have? The research that's going on in these facilities. Even, let's talk COVID for 2 minutes here. There's no reason why we don't have the pharmaceutical industry here in Alberta producing the pharmaceuticals that we need, and whether that's ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine or a vaccine for the flu. There's no reason why we don't have it here, other than the fact that our government hasn't made it a priority, or more important, wants us to be dependent on other countries. And it's quite clear when we look at our current prime minister and the dealings that he has with communist regimes. He's happy to have us dependent on them. I've talked in the past, about the economic dependency trap. This is what we're stuck with right now. Is we're getting fed free money. And I love the analogy. If you go into a room of hardworking Albertans, and let's say that we're at a conference, I don't know, let's say it's on an investment conference or a oil and gas conference. And if I was to go around with free things of fentanyl or opioid or something, say, hey, anybody want to try this stuff? Here's some stuff from the 60s, some LSD. It's a psychedelic trip you'd never believed, and you got to try this stuff. Everybody's wise enough to say, no thanks, I don't need that. But yet, when the government comes along and says, oh, here's some free money, you don't need to go to work, stay home, here's some free money. Oh, you don't need to worry about education. Here's free money, here's free money. $700 billion of this money being blown out here by this government and this budget, federal government. And what is it? It's an economic trap. Because once you become addicted to that and dependent on that, they know that you're going to vote for it. And that's what they're doing. This is nothing but a political slush fund trying to buy votes in the upcoming election that who knows when it's going to be, but sooner rather than later. And so what are we going to do about it as Albertans? Are we going to sit in our homes and just kind of, watch TV, play computer games? Or are we going to get out and get to the rallies? Are you going to get out and buy a membership in a party that actually is there for you, that's going to protect you? I say that party is the Wildrose Independence Party of Alberta. This is the party that gives us hope. This is the party that gives us an opportunity to actually get out there and say no to the government, and in a peaceful process, prepared to replace them. I don't know how many of you have ever been on a constituency association board in the past. Not very many. There's 4 million Albertans. There's 87 constituency associations. We have 3 or 4 parties. There's maybe 10 people on a board. 870. Less than 1% of the people have ever probably been participating on a constituency association board. You people that are tuning in, you're part of that 1%. We need you to buy a membership if you don't have one in the Wildrose Independence Party. We need you to send in a letter to contact@wildrose.party. And we need you to say, you know what, we want to get a CA up and going. Social media and the censorship, I just can't believe it. How this is being allowed by our government and supposedly the rule of law, where these tech companies get to decide and to put in their logarithms and to remove people. I'm shadow banned on my Twitter. I keep getting shut down on YouTube, depending on, you say those forbidden words, and boom, you're out of you're out of there, and you know you're in the penalty box. You're silenced for a week, 2 weeks, maybe forever. This is wrong, and we need to stand up. We need to start doing something. But where they can't stop us, and where we need to do is on the ground war. We need to develop CAs. In those CAs, you need to get together and you need to talk to your friends, your neighbors, and go door to door and hand out pamphlets and say that, you know what, there is an opportunity, there is a future. And probably the most important message for me is to tell those people that, you know what, the very first bill that if Paul Hinman is successful at winning the leadership of the Wildrose Independence Party, and the Wildrose Independence Party is successful at the poll, will be Bill 1, accountability of elected representatives. And that will be a recall bill. And that recall bill will be passed and will be held accountable. And what more could you want than someone that you can actually fire, and not just 2 out of the 4 years? If 2 days afterwards and the speech of those elected people are all of a sudden that, oh, that isn't what they were campaigning on. Holy smokes, they never said that. They didn't share those ideas. We need to be able to stop them and stop them in their track, not give them 30 days, 60 days, 6 months, or 4 years to impose their ideas on us. Usually with economic pain, family pain, attack at parental rights. All of these things are crazy. You have a choice. You have a choice of doing nothing, or you have a choice of participating in that. And I'm reaching out and asking you that you need to engage. To do nothing is a choice, and that choice will show a destiny of servitude, of destitution for Albertans. I mean, we're losing our oil and gas industry. Thank heavens the prices have bounced enough, but we're nowhere where we should have been. We have had hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars since 2008 leave this province of private money that wanted to develop industry here in Alberta, wanted to build pipelines, wanted to build upgraders. And then there's so many spin-offs from all of those. And it's been provincial and federal policies that have stymied that have driven it away. And it's time to say no more. Enough is enough. The status quo has to go. Do we want Ottawa making decisions for us, or are we going to make those decisions ourselves? It's time that we belly up and say we're going to be responsible for our own future. And again, I asked you to go to wildrose.party, read our website, and for those other people that claim that we're not sovereigntists, that we just want to try and get a fair deal with Ottawa, it's laughable. Don't believe it. Get involved. And again, it's at that CA level where we will and can excel, and we can take not only our province back, but we can take our province back and become a sovereign country. We will give Albertans that opportunity to see just who and what we can be when we take the steps to take control and to have autonomy from Ottawa, and then let Albertans vote on that. But anyways, hope you'll go to my website as well, paulhinman.com. I literally at 3:30 this afternoon finally heard back from Elections Alberta to give me the go-ahead to actually run for the leadership of the Wildrose Independence Party. Those of you who aren't paying attention or it's new, they opened up the nominations on the 2nd of April for a leadership race, and that's been kicked off. But need you to participate, need you to buy a membership, need you to talk to your friends that we need an elected leader for the party. Please go to, like I say, wildrose.party, or to go to my website, paulhinman.com. Please sign up. The reason why we need you to do that is because we continue to get censored, and we're not able to speak out, to share things, and even to tweet and say that I've got a broadcast coming on. When we get censored, we can't do that. So we need your email addresses. We won't abuse it. We promise that. And stay in contact with us. But these are exciting times. There is hope, but only if we do something. If we sit back on our laurels and say, well, I don't know, just another political party. If you want to give up, I respect that, but I'm disappointed. We have this opportunity here, and it's springtime. I look outside, the trees are in bud. It's exciting and beautiful to get out there. And you know, One of my favorite sayings is that work is for those people who don't know how to garden. My love is in the land. It's with animals, and it's gardening and getting in the dirt, and I miss that, but I'm willing to make that sacrifice this summer and this year for Albertans if we want to rise up together to say enough is enough. Status quo has to go. We're not going to have Ottawa control our future any longer, and we're not going to have Jason Kenney, what would I say, give patronage to Ottawa and to the Paris Accord and to the UN and to the WHO and to the World Economic Forum. I'm sorry. There isn't a single one of those organizations that has the interest of Albertans, but the Wildrose Independence Party, we do, and we're there for Alberta. Let's come together. Let's fight for our future, for our children, our grandchildren. We can do this. And I'm just grateful for those of you that are already here, but we've got to grow the party. I need you to go to my website. I need you to go to paulhinman.com. By tomorrow, now that we've got the go ahead at 3:30, I'll go to the bank. We'll get up a donation place for my leadership race. And I just can't say enough to say thank you to those Albertans that are engaged, and we need to get more. But David, do we have a few questions that need to answer? I can't believe I've rattled on for that long, but when do we get our referendum on separation? Well, we get that as soon as we can, but the first thing we need to do is to form a government. We need to exercise our full autonomy to give Albertans the confidence. And again, that I can see Ottawa being upset as we start collecting the taxes, having our own police force, our own pension plan. Once we've got everything in order, our business is ready to go, we'll be letting Albertans have a referendum so that we can be sovereign. Next question.
This next question here, hello everybody. I think I want to answer this.
Okay.
How's it going with CAs? Do we need one in Edmonton, Southwest? And also, someone also asks, is there a list of CAs with vacancies? So let me give this a show here on the Wildrose Party website. You'll see it says at the top, constituency associations. And if you go there, you'll notice that you can organize or filter by ones that have already been organized and ones that are coming up where they actually have their paperwork in and their date has been set. If you scroll down, you can see all of these different CAs. If you notice here, Airdrie East, Bridget Frostad. I think she's online tonight. Hello, Bridget. You can email them, the president. There's even phone numbers. So there's all the information. Now, if you scroll down to the bottom, all the way to the bottom, so we have a lot of CAs either set up or about to be set up. If you don't see your CA in the list, you can fill out this information, and the party will get back to you and help you organize your CA. And it's very simple. There's some paperwork. There's only a few members that you have to start. So, Paul, you can take it from there. If you want to answer any more or talk about the CAs, I'll let you at it.
Okay, well, it's all about the CAs. You know, I've won 2 elections, but I went out door knocking for 6 months, talking to Albertans and actually listening to Albertans. And again, I don't know if you've ever participated with the big parties and their door knocking campaigns and stuff, but they run to the door and said, "Oh, hello, my name's Paul Hinman. I'm representing the Wildrose Independence Party, and here's a pamphlet. Can I count on your vote?" I don't know. That's just not me. I love going to the door and saying, "Hello, my name's Paul Hinman. I'm really frustrated with government and what's government doing. How about you?" And they'll say, "Well, I don't know. I don't think about it much." And I says, "Really?" You know, I says, "Are you happy, you know, and with our deficit? Are you happy with stuff?" And you got to talk to people. But the bottom line is, if we create our CAs and we start going out and talking to Albertans and you go door knocking, I absolutely believe we can win. Both times that I've won, I was below 3% in the polls when we started. But like I say, I door knocked for 6 months. I was dedicated to listen to Albertans. And again, one of the things that I asked them, I says, "Well, do you think it makes any difference when somebody gets elected who's really in there?" And most Albertans will say no, they're all the same. Once you get in there, you don't return our phone calls, you don't listen to us, you do what you think is best. There's no consultation. You say you consult, but you don't listen. And I says, well, wouldn't you like to be able to fire them? And again, we can make personal commitments. Personal commitments. I did every time. I said, you know what? And again, I'd look at the last election is what I usually looked at. And I'd say, well, if 7,000 people back in 2004, if 7,000 people sign the petition in 120 days, you can fire me. I might run in the election again, but you can fire me. Or now it's 10 or 12,000, depending on the size of the CAs. But you can say, you know what? You can fire me. We don't need to pass legislation. Wildrose independent candidates, if I'm successful at becoming the leader, we will be making that commitment to every Albertan that we will be accountable to them, and you can fire us. We don't need to pass legislation to keep our word and to be accountable. And there's just so many things if you go through the Constitution that we need to do. I look at this Emergency Act and this new Bill 66 that's supposed to repeal Bill 10. And again, a lot of this stuff was thrown out of court because Jason says, oh, we're going to repeal that with Bill 66. And so the court says, well, we're not going to give you a court date then. We'll wait to see what Bill 66 is. Well, let's be kind. They repealed a few things, but they put them in another place. This is worse than a magician. Hey, watch what's going over here. Well, I pick your pocket. I'm sorry, Mr. Premier. Bill 66 is a complete failure. I've been around. I was up in High River for the flood. I've been around to the different fires. The people get there way before government. High River, the tractors and the front end loaners, the combines and stuff that came in to rescue people were there long before any government officials could show up to do any help, before they shut down all the volunteers. This idea that the government needs to come in and say, oh, we're confiscating your tractor, oh, we're confiscating your house, we're taking this under the Emergency Act. Sorry, that's wrong. We have incredible people here in Alberta, and we step up to the plate. We don't need the government to tell us what to do, and we certainly don't need the government to take our stuff and say, oh, we're going to have some hick guy drive your tractor to do this or to take your truck or whatever the emergency need is no. We have an incredible system, and again, with someone like Lieutenant Colonel Redmond, who is actually operating those things. I love when he talks about the Army and he says, you know what, we actually ask for volunteers on the really bad jobs, the ones that there's a high risk. When we're doing a mission, we ask for volunteers, and the volunteers come forward. And that's what it is during an emergency act. The volunteers will come and they will provide. We don't need martial law. We don't need lockdowns. And again, if there's a disaster out there, and let's say there was a real pandemic and people were dying, doctors need to get out and move around. Things need to happen. The government's job is to give us the best information that they collect, which they don't, all the censorship and the garbage they do. And then let us take the risk assessment on what we're going to do. If someone wants to jump in their boat and to go into High River to try and rescue some people, who is government to say that you can't do that? I was just shocked at High River, at the heavy hand of government during that flood and keeping people out of their homes for months, saying you can't go in there. Anyways, I've lost all faith in government. We need to have one that's actually accountable to the people, and that constitution that limits the size and scope of government, and that absolutely, irrevocably protects the individual's right to life, liberty, and property, and their pursuit of happiness. This idea that we can't go to work because we're going to make somebody sick. I mean, it's just unbelievable that the restaurants are shut down again, and those people who want to go there can't. And this virtue signaling that we're telling everybody that, you know what, if you're not doing your part, you're the boogeyman of society, you're the evil one. I was given that quote today, and I need to read it or whatever, but this is so applicable to this idea of sacrificing the individual for the well. And again, it came from Marnie well, I guess I don't want to quote where it is, but the bottom line is, I'm not going to light myself on fire to warm you up. We each individually have that personal responsibility for our wellness, our health, and our safety, our security. And we need to allow government to allow us to look after that and not become dependent. But we'll talk more about the economic traps, personal responsibility in the future. But can't thank you enough for tuning in tonight. Please share this. I'm excited that Elections Alberta gave me the go-ahead at like 3:35 tonight to enter the leadership race for the Wildrose Independence Party. Let's talk it up. Let's let's have house meetings. I don't know that we can have town halls, but we can have virtual meetings, whatever people are wanting to do. But I'm excited. The door's been opened, and let the race begin. But take care. God bless, and we'll see you soon.